Daf Yomi, Tractate Chullin, page Daled, page 4. And let's start on the bottom of page Gimel, side B, Gimel and Beis, for context. The sages taught in Braita, Tanu Rabbanan, the sages taught in Braita, the slaughter performed by a Samaritan is permitted ab initio, which means even right away, even the premium way. In what case is this statement said? It is said in a case where there is a Jew standing over him and supervising to ensure that the slaughter was performed properly. But if the Jew came and found that the Samaritan already slaughtered the animal, the Jew cuts an olive bulk of meat from the slaughtered animal and gives it to the Samaritan to eat. If the Samaritan ate it, it is permitted for the Jew to eat meat from what the Samaritan slaughtered, but if the Samaritan did not eat the meat, it is prohibited to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. Okay, similarly, if the Jew found in the possession of a Samaritan, and now we turn to our daily daf, which is Chullin Daled Amin Aleph, on the top. Very, very top of the words Dekuria Shel Siparim Koter Osho. Okay? Dekuria Shel Siparim Koter Osho Shel Echad Mehem Benoten Lo Acharo Mutar Lechol Mishchitato Im Lav Asur Lechol Mishchitato. A string of birds, and the Jew does not know whether they were properly slaughtered. He severs the head of one of them and gives it to the Samaritan to eat. If the Samaritan ate it, it is permitted for the Jew to eat the meat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. But if the Samaritan did not eat the meat, it is prohibited to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. Abaye dayek miresha, Rava dayek miseifa. Abaye dayek miresha, Tamadir Israel. Oy midel gabo, aval yoisev nichnas lo. In arriving at their respective interpretations of the Mishnah, Abaye inferred from the first clause of the Braita, and Rava inferred from the latter clause of the Braita. Abaye inferred from the first clause, the slaughter performed by a Samaritan is permitted in a case where there is a Jew actively supervising to ensure that the slaughter was performed properly, that the reason it is permitted is that the Jew is standing over him. But if the Jew exits and enters, then no, it is prohibited to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. Rava dayek v'seifa taimat deba umatzao shishachat aval yotzei nichnas shapir dame. Rava inferred from the latter clause, if the Jew came and found that the Samaritan already slaughtered the animal, the Jew cuts an olive bulk of meat from the slaughtered animal and gives it to the Samaritan to eat. The reason that it is necessary to administer this test is due only to the fact that the Jew came and found that the Samaritan already slaughtered the animal. But in a case where the Jew exits and enters, it is permitted to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered ab initio. And the reason that we said that this test is, just to review it, I haven't seen it expressed here, so I'll just say it from the previous page, that it's actually in praise of the Samaritans. It's not putting the Samaritans down at all. It's saying that the Samaritans have such high standards on what they'll eat, because they also eat only clean stuff, and I guess they have their own kosher rights, their own kosher laws, and it was known, I guess, that Samaritans would only eat an animal that was slaughtered properly. So that's why you administer the test. But I mean, maybe the Samaritan's not eating it because he doesn't want. Maybe he doesn't want to eat right now. You know what I mean? We don't know for sure. Anyways, that's a test. Maybe if he says I would eat it, but I'm not hungry now, maybe that's just as good. I don't know. Anyway, Abaye Kashya Seifa Amar Lach Yotze V'Nichnas Nami B'Matzah Karale Uravakash Tirei Shamalach Yotzinichnas Nami Keomi Gaba Dami. The Gemara raises an objection, and according to Abaye, the latter clause is difficult. The Gemara answers that Abaye could have said to you. The Tana also characterizes the case where a Jew exits and enters as a case of if the Jew came and found the Samaritan. The Gemara raises an objection. And according to Rava, the first clause is difficult, but Gemara answers that Rava could have said to you, the case where a Jew exits and enters is also considered like a case where the Jew was standing over him, and it is included in that halakha. The writer continues, similarly, if the Jew found a string of birds in the possession of a Samaritan, and the Jew does not know whether they were properly slaughtered, he severs the head of one of them and gives it to the Samaritan to eat. If the Samaritan ate it, it is permitted for the Jew to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. But if the Samaritan did not eat the meat, it is prohibited to eat from what the Samaritan slaughtered. The Gemara asks, why is that a reliable indication? Let us be concerned that perhaps it is this bird alone whose head the Jew severed that the Samaritan slaughtered properly, and the rest are unslaughtered carcasses. Amar Rav Menashe, Simen, Machnis Ismael Bezecharim. B'machnisan tachas kenafav. Rav Menashe said an answer to this question before presenting his answer. The Gemara cites a mnemonic for the three statements of Rav Menashe cited in this tractate. This one and two others inserts. There's three things. One is inserts a scalpel. It's machnis. C31a for that one. Into rams means is male. Aisle is male. I think it's like aisle. I think it's probably a variant of that. Is male. Into rams and C51a for that one. Bizacharim. I think with into ram. I think is because aisle. Machnis. Maybe it's Machnis Ismail. I'm not sure what Ismail means, but they're only translating two things here: inserts a scalpel and into rams. Okay, Rav Menashe's answer is as follows: the case in the Braita is one where the Jew inserts the string of birds under the corners of his garment and hands the Samaritan the head of one of the birds. In that way, the Samaritan has no way of knowing from which bird the head was taken. If he ate it, apparently all the birds were slaughtered properly. Bedilma simana havle lebegave amram sharshia dimmas mes le masmose. The Gemara challenges that perhaps the Samaritan placed a distinguishing mark in that bird, indicating to him that it is the kosher one. Rav Marsharshia said the case in the Braita is one where the Jew crushed the head that he gave the Samaritan, thereby rendering it indistinguishable from the others. The Gemara challenges this answer. Perhaps the Samaritans hold that there is no source for the slaughter of a bird in the Torah. Therefore, the fact that the Samaritan ate the bird's head is no proof that the bird is properly slaughtered. The Gemara rejects that possibility, and according to your reasoning, those actions that disqualify the slaughter of an animal, interrupting the slaughter, pressing the knife, concealing the knife in the course of an inverted slaughter, diverting the knife from the place of slaughter, and ripping the simanim from their place before cutting them, are they written in the Torah? Ela kivan de ach ziku behu achaziku behu hachanami kivan achaziku achaziku. Rather, even though the details are not all written in the Torah, and we know that the Kutim, the Samaritans, don't hold of any rabbinical injunctions, any rabbinical institutions, anything like that. It's just the Torah itself. Rather, even though the details are not all written in the Torah, once the Samaritans embrace those disqualifications, they embrace them, and the Jew may rely on their slaughter. When they eat from the meat, it is permitted for the Jew to eat the meat as well. Here too, although the requirement of the ritual slaughter for a bird is not written in the Torah, once the Samaritans embrace the mitzvah of ritual slaughter, they embrace it in the same manner that it is performed by Jews. Ve'achzuk lo achzuk b'dila ketiva tanei etanya matzas kusi muteres ve'odum yoytzipo yidechavosu b'pesach. With regard to mitzvot that are written explicitly in the Torah, that Samaritans embrace the question of whether they are presumed to fulfill them in the manner that Jews fulfill them, or they are not presumed to do so, is a dispute between Tanaim. As it is taught in a Braita, it is permitted to eat the matzah of a Samaritan on Passover, and a person fulfills his obligation to eat matzah on the first night of Passover with it. Rabbi Elazar oser lefi she'en beki'in b'dikduke mitzvot ki Yisrael. Rabbi Elazar prohibits the consumption of matzah of a Samaritan on Passover because the Samaritans are not experts in the details of mitzvot like Jews and do not know the precise nature of leaven prohibited by the Torah. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Kol mitzvah shechaziko b'kutim harbe midak dukim ba yoyse misrael. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, on the contrary, with regard to any mitzvah that the Samaritans embraced and accepted upon themselves, they are more exacting in its observance than the Jews. Therefore, one may assume that they prepared the matzah properly. Amar mar matzahs kuti muteres ve'odom yoytzidecha b'pesach pshita ma'u detem lo b'kiyim b'shimo kamash malan Rabbi Elazar oser lefi she'en b'kiyim b'dikduke mitzvos kasavar lo b'kiyim b'shimo. The Gemara proceeds to analyze the Braita. The Master said it is permitted to eat the matzah of a Samaritan on Passover, and a person fulfills his obligation to eat matzah on the first night of Passover with it. The Gemara asks, isn't it obvious that if the matzah is permitted, one fulfills his obligation with it on Passover? The Gemara answers, lest you say that the Samaritans are not expert in the mitzvah of guarding the matzah for the sake of the mitzvah. The Tana teaches us that they are experts. Rabbi Elazar deems it prohibited to eat the matzah of Samaritans on Passover due to the fact that the Samaritans are not experts in the details of mitzvot. He holds that the Samaritans are not expert in the midst of guarding the matzah for the sake of the mitzvah. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Kol mitzvah shechaziku b'kusim harbe migdat gimo yoser misroel. Haynu tan de kama ika benayu. Dichsiva lo herziku bo tan kamer soval. Kevan dichsiva aval gav. De lo achziku ba. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel sovar I achzuk in ilo achzuk lo. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, with regard to any mitzvah that Samaritans embrace and accepted by themselves, they are more exacting in this observance than are Jews. The Gemara raises an objection that is identical to the opinion of the first Tana. The Gemara explained there is a practical difference between their opinions with regard to a mitzvah that is written, but with regard to which the Samaritans did not embrace it. The first Tana holds, once the mitzvah is written in the Torah, even if there is no knowledge that they embraced it, Samaritans can be relied upon to perform it properly. And Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel holds, even with regard to a mitzvah written in the Torah, if they embrace it at observance, yes, one may rely on the Samaritans, but if they did not embrace its observance, no, one may not rely on them. The Gemara challenges, if that is so, that this is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. The formulation of his statement is imprecise. He said, With regard to any mitzvah that Samaritans embraced and accepted upon themselves, they are more exacting in its observance than are Jews. This indicates that one may rely upon Samaritans to observe those mitzvot, even if they are not written in the Torah. Therefore, he should have said, if they embraced, which addresses the statement of the first Tana, contrary to the first Tana, who said that one may rely upon Samaritans with regard to any mitzvah that is written. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says that one may rely upon them only if they embrace the mitzvah. Rather, there is a practical difference between their opinions with regard to a mitzvah that is not written and with regard to which the Samaritans embraced its observance. The first Tana holds, since it is not written, even though they embraced its observance, one may also rely upon them. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds, once it is known that they embraced the observance of a mitzvah, they embraced the mitzvah, and one may rely upon them. With regard to the statement of Rava said earlier on 3a, the Gemara analyzes the matter itself. Rava says in the case of a Jewish transgressor whose transgression is that he eats unslaughtered animal carcasses to satisfy his appetite. If he seeks to slaughter an animal, one examines a knife to ensure that it is perfectly smooth, with no nicks, and gives it to the transgressor, and it is permitted to eat from what he slaughtered. My time. The Gemara explains, what is the reason? Why is it that a transgressor is slaughter is good? Why? What is the reason? The answer is, since in this case there is the option to slaughter the animal in a permitted manner or to slaughter the animal in a prohibited manner. Such a transgression would not intentionally forsake the permitted manner and eat food slaughtered in a prohibited manner. Since he has a knife that was examined and the majority of those associated with the slaughter are experts, the food is presumed to be permitted, and there is no concern that perhaps he intentionally sabotaged the slaughter. The more challenges. If so, then even in the case where the Jew did not examine the knife, it should be permitted to eat from the animal slaughtered by the transgressor. The more answer is it is prohibited because if the transgressor discovers that the knife is flawed, he does not exert himself to replace it with a knife with a smooth blade. Amar le Rabbanan Rabbe Tanya Yisrael Nechametzan Shavuot Aveiro Achal BePesach. And now we turn to the next Amud 4b. Mutar miyad b'nei shem machlifin. Okay, the sages said to Rabbi, Braita is taught and supports your opinion. With regard to the leavened bread of transgressors who do not eradicate their leavened bread before Passover, after Passover, turning to 4b down on the top, it is permitted immediately due to the fact that they exchange the forbidden leavened bread in their possession with permitted leavened bread belonging to Gentiles immediately after Passover. Okay, stop here and continue with this.